Okay, so here is the video review for the quiz from last week over chapters 12 and 13. So I'll just go over these questions. So if you missed any and you have questions about why you missed them, this is going to be where you can find that information. So question number 1, we have a team of scientists trying to categorize a new life form they believe is an insect. So how are they going to base their decision on whether or not to classify the creature as an insect? The correct answer here is A. The team will study the insects in a phylogenetic tree and see whether the new creature matches the characteristics of one of the tree's branches. And so that's where they would go for that question. Number 2, the scientific discipline of classifying organisms into increasingly more inclusive groups according to an international classification standard is taxonomy. Entomology is the study of insects, so that's not right. Paleontology, also not right. Taxonomy is the correct answer there. Question number 3, which list is correct in descending classification? So we're going from the largest group to the smallest group. So the largest group listed here is kingdom. After that, it goes down to order, then family, then species. So A is the correct answer here. This one also starts with kingdom, but then it has order and phylum. Phylum is more inclusive. It is a bigger group than order, so these are not in the correct order there. Question number 4, organisms that are more closely related overlap more how? So they overlap more genetically and morphologically, right? We learned that the genotypes encode for those phenotypes, so if they have similar genetics, they're likely to have similar morphologies as well. They don't necessarily have the same diet, they don't necessarily have the same metabolism, but they are going to overlap genetically and morphologically. Question number 5, what is a clade? So this is just a definition here. So a clade is a group of organisms that all share a common ancestor. So it's not necessarily a group that has a dominant female member. It's not an ancestor of a group. It is the group of organisms that have an ancestor in common. Just the definition of a clade. Question number 6, which classification of life contains the highest number of species? So this is going to be the biggest group, the most inclusive group. That is going to be the domain, right? We only have 3 domains. So that is going to be the one that contains the highest number of species. Kingdom is the second highest here. Genus is going to be the smallest out of those 3. Question number 7, why do scientists classify living organisms? So the reason they classify living organisms is to study their evolutionary relationship on the basis of those shared characteristics. Humans like to organize and classify things. It's helpful for us to study those evolutionary relationships. We do give them Latin names, but that's not why we classify them. The Latin names are just a standard so that everybody, all the researchers across the globe are referring to a specific organism in a specific way. We don't have multiple names for the same organism. And it's not necessarily to see which organisms are more advanced. We're just wanting to see how these organisms are related. Question number 8, the timeline of evolution of different species from a common ancestor, often drawn as a tree-like diagram, is a what kind of tree? It is a phylogenetic tree. So just the definition of a phylogenetic tree there. So in question number 9, we have a phylogenetic tree. We needed to list 2 sister taxa and how we knew that they were sister taxa. So the definition of sister taxa is when 2 lineages come from the same branch point. So you had a couple of options here. Most people, I think, put these 2 species of orangutan. You could have said the gorillas as well. So you had some options for what you listed as sister taxa, but you needed to define sister taxa as well to get full credit. Question number 10. So we have a cladogram here. So based on what we know about cladograms, which groups have an amniotic egg? So we have all of our groups up at the top of our cladogram. Along this line down at the bottom, we have all of our traits. So this is basically our timeline down here with the evolution of these traits. So if we go up here to amniotic egg, everything that has an amniotic egg is going to be on the right side of that trait. So on the right side of this trait, we have this branch point over here, which leads to our primates and our rodents and our rabbits. And then we have another branch over here that's crocodiles and birds. So all 4 of those groups are going to have the amniotic egg. And part B is having vertebrae a shared ancestral characteristic or a shared derived characteristic. Vertebrae is down here. So all of the members on this cladogram have vertebrae. So this is going to be a shared ancestral characteristic because it's found in all the members of a group. Shared derived characteristics are only found in some of the members of a group. So the amniotic egg is a shared derived characteristic, but the vertebrae in this cladogram is a shared ancestral characteristic. Everybody has it. Question number 11, which group of organisms consist of more than one cell? So that's going to be the eukarya, right? Our bacteria and our archaea are all prokaryotes, which are single-celled organisms, but eukaryotes can be multicellular. Question number 12, which of the following is not a characteristic shared by prokaryotes? So prokaryotes have ribosomes. Mitochondria are membrane-bound organelles. So we know prokaryotes don't have any membrane-bound organelles. So this is looking like our right answer. Prokaryotes do have cytoplasm, they have genetic material, and they have a plasma membrane. So mitochondria is going to be our answer there. Question number 13, which type of prokaryotes are able to live in the most extreme environments? These are going to be the archaea. These are our extremophiles. They like to live in, or they are able to live in really hot areas or really salty areas, really extreme environments. Those extremophiles are the archaea. Question number 14, which statement is not true about bacteria? So the first one here is that they reproduce sexually. Bacteria do not reproduce sexually, they reproduce asexually. So that's looking like our right answer here. They have a single circular chromosome, that is true. They occur in 3 basic shapes, that's also true. They lack mitochondria, also true. And they lack a nucleus but contain DNA. All of those 4 things are true, so A is going to be our best answer here. They reproduce sexually, that is not true about bacteria. Question number 15, so the 3 shapes of bacteria. So just kind of flipping through all of these. So anaerobic, aerobic, and facultative, that has nothing to do with the shape. Helical, spiral, and streptococci, that's kind of starting to talk about shapes, but those are not the 3 shapes that bacteria are classified into. Heterotrophic, autotrophic, chemosynthetic, that is not referring to shapes, that's referring to how they get food. Haplontic, diplontic, alternations, that's also not referring to the shape, kind of referring to a life cycle. Bacillus, coccus, and spirillum, this is the answer we're looking for here. They have the rod shapes, the spherical shapes, and the spiral shapes. Bacillus, coccus, and spirillum. Question 16. The response of bacteria that allows them to be identified as gram-positive or negative is due to what? So this has to do with their cell walls. So they have cell walls that have peptidoglycan, and whether or not they are gram-positive or gram-negative has to do with how thick this layer is. So a thick or thin layer of peptidoglycan is going to be what makes these gram-positive or gram-negative. Question 17, bacterial cells pick up free pieces of DNA in the environment that were released from dead bacteria. So this process is transformation. That's the definition of transformation there, where they just pick up pieces of DNA that are left in the environment. Question 18, one bacterial cell passes DNA to a second cell. That is the process of conjugation. So another type of genetic recombination in these bacteria, conjugation. Question 19. Microbiology is the study of microbes. So this is a few different things. It includes all of the following except for which one. So archaea, those are going to be a microbe. Protists are a microbe. Fungi are a microbe. Plants are not. Okay, and not all of the fungi and protists are microbial, right? We do have some much larger fungi and larger protists, but there are microbial strains of fungi and protists as well. So plants are not included in microbiology at all. Question 20. So bacteria can be beneficial in all but which of the following ways? So the first one here, they are the primary producers of most ecosystems. That does not sound right, because those primary producers are going to be things that are photosynthetic. They function in wastewater purification. We did talk about that. That's true. They're present on the skin. That's true. They can be used to help clean up oil spills. That's true. Those are all three things that we talked about. So A is going to be the correct answer here. Question 21. Which of the following best describes a protist? So a single-celled eukaryote. Well, we talked about the multicellular protist, so that's not true. A eukaryote that is not a fungi, plant, or animal. That sounds right. Let's read the other choices, though. Heterotrophic eukaryotic organism closely related to animals. That is not true because we do have some protists that are not heterotrophic, right, that can do photosynthesis. Any unicellular organism that uses pseudopods to move. So protists have multiple locomotion strategies, not just pseudopods, and they can be multicellular, so that's not true. This is going to be the best definition there, choice B, a eukaryote that is not a fungi, a plant, or an animal. Kind of just everything else that's a eukaryote and not one of those three things. Question 22. Although protists have a wide diversity of organisms, they're all grouped into one kingdom. This is false. Protists were grouped into one kingdom, but they have now been split into 5 different kingdoms. So that wide diversity is in 5 different kingdoms. Question 23. Fungi are not photosynthetic because they lack chlorophyll, right? When we talked about photosynthesis, we talked about the importance of chlorophyll in those chloroplasts. You can't do photosynthesis without it, so they can't be photosynthetic because they don't have chlorophyll. Question 24. Which of the following best describes the nutrition strategy of fungi? So eutrophic, that's not really a type of nutrition strategy. Heterotrophic, that is a nutrition strategy with internal digestion. And that could be right because it's heterotrophic, but we still need to think about this second component there. This one says external digestion of organic material, and then photoautotrophic. So we just said that fungi are, they don't do photosynthesis, so this is not right. So we're down to these 2 choices. The nutrition strategy of fungi is that they are heterotrophic, but they do external digestion. So they digest outside of the body of the fungi and then they ingest the nutrients, right? This is opposite from what an animal like us does, where we digest or we ingest our food first and then we digest it. So they have external digestion, not internal digestion. Question 25, choose the structures that help define the members of kingdom fungi. So unicellular, that's not true because some fungi are multicellular. Move via flagella, cilia, and pseudopods. Those locomotion strategies are in regards to the protists, so that's not true. Cell walls containing chitin, that one is true. And non-modal, that's true also. So those 2 choices help us define the members of kingdom fungi. Question 26, a mycelium is a mesh of filaments. And what are these filaments called? Those are going to be a hypha right there. So that is the filaments that make up that mycelium. Just a definition of a fungi structure. Question 27, briefly describe the important role that fungi play in nutrient cycling. So fungi are decomposers. So when when organic material, when the organism dies, those nutrients are trapped in that organism unless something can come in and break it down and release those nutrients back into the environment. So that's what fungi do. That's what fungi does, right? They take those nutrients that are trapped in that organic matter, they make them available for other organisms. So plants can take up those nutrients, which help them in their photosynthesis. List 2 mutualistic relationships that fungi have with other organisms. So the 2 we talked about were lichens and mycorrhizae. Mutualistic means that both organisms are benefiting from this interaction. So both the fungi and what they are in a relationship with, both are benefiting. And then we needed to explain one of these. So mycorrhizae is the one that we talked about in more detail. It's a mutualistic association of fungi and plant roots. So the plants are providing food for the fungi, right? Because the fungi are heterotrophic. They can't make their own food. And then the fungi are providing nutrients to the plant. So it's these really close interactions in the small pieces of the roots in the soil for these plants, and the fungi are down in the soil as well. Question 29. So these last few questions were all just the bonus questions. about specific organisms that you guys had the options to answer. So question 29 is talking about the cell wall of diatoms. So this is embedded with silica. So they have these little glassy shells. Question 30, red tides are produced by blooms of dinoflagellates. So that's where the red tides come from. Question 31, we're talking about organisms that move with pseudopods. So the flagella of Protists is just a single whip-like structure that allows for movement. The cilia are a bunch of tiny hairs all over the body of the organism. And then the pseudopod is that foot-like structure that kind of extends out from the body of the organism to move it forward. So amoebas are the ones that are sort of the classic example of these pseudopods. So we can choose this one right here. Question 32, which includes the parasites that cause African sleeping sickness. So you just needed to do a little research to figure out the answer to this, and the answer is zooflagellates right there. And then question 33, which of the following are not grouped with the protists? So black bread mold is a type of fungi. It is not a protist. Slime molds, algae, protozoans, water molds are all protists, but black bread mold is not. Okay, so if you have any questions about those answers, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, you can expect another video next week going over the quiz for chapter 14 that you guys are going to take on Friday.